Hey guys. How are you doing?
Afternoon.
So please turn your cameras on and we're gonna start. Okay guys, your cameras. Okay. Okay guys. So today we're gonna start a new section. This week we're gonna be working on the listening section. So that's what we're gonna be doing. Now in the listening section, you got two different types of tasks. So you're gonna have to listen to some audio files and then answer some questions based on that. So it's very similar to the reading in the sense that it's multiple choice. So you don't have to elaborate your responses or anything. What else? You have to answer based on some material. So it's not like the speaking and writing where you produce your own response, right? So the listening section. Okay, so you're gonna have two different types of tasks. The first one is gonna be listening to some conversations. So you will just listen to a conversations, pretty casual, I would say. The vocabulary used is gonna be quite easy, I would say. And then after you're done with the conversations part, you'll have to listen to some lectures. So this is where I would say it gets a little bit complicated maybe for some people. The lectures part, they are academic. So you may find some new words, maybe some new content that you're not so used to. These are like college classes, right? University classes. So it might be a bit harder than the conversations for sure, but it's still not, rocket science. So you have the conversations and the lectures, okay? Now, if you're wondering how many of them you'll have, here's the answer. So this is gonna depend on the number of tasks that you had in the reading. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but in the reading, I said that, do you remember how many tasks you could have in the reading?
I think 4 or 5 tasks.
Okay, almost close, but not quite. It's 3 or 4 tasks, right? 3 or 4 passages in the reading section. So according to the number of passages you got in the reading section, you could have either 5 or 7 tasks here in the listening. So if in the reading you had the longer version, you have 4 passages, that means that in the listening here, you will only have 5 tasks. However, if in the reading you have 3 passages, so you had the shorter reading, the listening will be longer, so you'll have 7 tasks. I think I mentioned this when we were looking at the reading, right? So the shorter the reading, the longer the listening. Okay, now what else? Out of these 5 tasks, 2 are going to be conversations and 3 lectures, or if you get 7, 3 conversations and 4 lectures. Now, the same thing here as it happened in the reading. So if you have these 2 extra tasks, that means they are going to be unscored. So they're not going to be worth anything. But of course, you don't know which ones those are. So you just got to answer everything. Okay. And don't worry about the timing part. I would honestly say that this is not such a big problem here, not like it was in the reading. So you have 41 minutes if you have 5, and you have 57 minutes if you have 7. So it means that you get around 1 minute and a half. Well, not, I'm sorry, like 40 seconds per question. Okay, now that may not seem like a lot, but trust me, here in the reading, you read the question and either you remember the answer or you don't, right? There's no other way. It's not like in the reading where you have to go back and check and try to read. Here, you just read the question and you're gonna know the answer. If you don't know the answer, you're probably, you're not gonna find out just by like thinking it through. So believe me, this is more than enough. Most students take like 20 to 30 seconds per question. So it's even more than you need. So any questions so far here on the structure?
We're good.
Okay, good. So today we're going to start with the conversations part. We're going to be looking at the conversations, how they are and how we can answer those questions. And next class, we'll focus only on the lectures. Okay, so today let's talk about these conversations. So these conversations that you'll have in here are going to be between a student and a campus worker. Okay, so a student and a campus worker, they're going to be taking place inside campus, so in a certain university. Okay, this is all going to be university settings. So this is going to be some, you're going to have some college vocabulary. So it will be a great idea if you can have some extra vocabulary words related to college life. Because these conversations, as I'm saying, are going to be between a student and a campus worker. Now, this campus worker here could be anyone, really. It could be like a professor, which is really common. It could be the librarian. It could be the accommodations officer. It could be, I don't know, maybe the academic advisor. Okay, so anyone who works on campus, basically. So a student and a campus worker. And what they are going to be discussing is going to be a problem that a student has. So this student here will always have a problem. So there's a problem. He has a problem and he's going to go and ask for advice. So he goes to the professor, the librarian, and asks for advice. So what can I do if I have this problem? And obviously the campus worker gives some suggestions. So you have a problem, you have advice and some suggestions. Okay, so that's what the conversations are going to be about. Is it okay so far? Do you have any questions? Okay. So here are some things that you guys should know about the listening section. So first of all, you're only going to be allowed to listen to the audio file once. So you cannot hear it more than once, okay? No matter what happens, if maybe you're having some problems with your connection, if you're taking the home edition test or anything that could happen, you can only listen to this audio file once. So don't even bother asking, you know? You can only listen to it once. Now, another thing is that you're gonna have access to the questions only after you're done listening to the audio file. So you listen to the audio and then you have the questions. You can never listen and answer the questions at the same time. Okay, so it's not like you're listening and selecting the right choices. No, you listen and then you answer the questions. Another thing is that you get them one at a time. So you cannot see the whole of them all at once, not like in the reading. So here you get them one by one. And unfortunately, you can't skip questions or you can go back either. So that means that you need to answer question 1 to move on to question 2. And once you are in question 2, you can never go back to question 1 again. Okay, so once you press next, there's no turning back. So you cannot skip questions, so you can never leave a question in blank, and you cannot go back either. All right. And well, as we're saying, you get like 40 seconds per question. So don't take more than 1 minute. That would be terrible. But I'm sure this is not going to be a problem because, as I'm saying, time is usually not the problem in the listening section. So those are some things that I could say. Do you guys have any questions so far? Okay. Now, another thing, here are some tips I can give you guys. So first of all, try not to over stress and over worry. So sometimes when you're listening to something, you have the feeling that if you miss some parts, then everything's lost, right? That's the end of the world. But it's not. It's okay if you didn't catch some words, some expressions, if you missed some details, if you didn't have time to take notes of everything. That's okay, especially here in the conversations, okay? The conversations you're gonna see that are quite easy. It's easy to take notes on them. You don't even have to take notes on the conversations, but I suggest you do. So don't try to understand everything. Don't try to kind of make a transcript. So write down every single word you're hearing. That's not gonna get you anywhere. Try not to write everything down. Well, I think that's kind of the same tip. So try not to write down like every single word that is being said. In the conversations especially, just try to pay attention and listen to what they're saying. It's more important to understand the whole idea rather than trying to catch those details in the conversation. Another thing is, okay, this is gonna be for the lectures. Maybe you can try to anticipate the questions. So for example, you know what the questions are gonna be about. Most of the time you get one question for what the problem is. So why does the student go to see the professor? You get one of those questions at the beginning. So you need to know at least what the problem is. And then you get some questions about the suggestions. So you get maybe like, so what are the things that the professor suggests the student does? So those are common types of questions. And then maybe you can have some questions about how the student feels about those suggestions. So how or why does the student not want to do this, right? So those are the type of questions you get. So try to anticipate them, try to catch that information. Try not to get distracted when you're taking the test, because as I'm saying, you can only listen to it once. Yes, those are some things I could say. Take notes, but don't write everything down, especially not for the conversation. When we get to the lectures part, I'll show you how to do it. I'm actually going to show you how I take my notes and everything. But here in the conversations, just try to take notes on some keywords maybe, but don't worry too much about the notes. So that's what I could say. Do you guys have any questions now about how it works, what you can or cannot do, or suggestions? Any questions? All right. Now, as for the types of questions, you know that here in the listening, we also have some types of questions, the same way that we had in the reading, right? We went one by one through the types of questions. So it's the same here. You have different types. Now, I'm not gonna go through them one by one in detail because we don't have that much time. I wish we had maybe 2 more classes to work on these, but we don't. So I'm just gonna show you, this chart here. So as you can see, these are the types. You have the main idea, which asks about the problem, so what problem does the student have? And it's usually the first question that you get. So it's really important that you understand the problem. And you don't have to take notes for this. You don't even need your notes. You just need to listen to the introduction of the conversation, and that's it. Sometimes you have this function for questions like, why does the professor say this? So what's the purpose of that? But they are not that common in the conversations. So they are not something to worry about. Organization, same thing here. These are more for the lectures, not so much for the conversations. Sometimes you have these attitude questions, and I'll give you some tips on this specific type. So these attitude questions ask you about feelings. So what does the professor, or how does the professor feel about these? Or what's the attitude that the student has toward this thing? Okay, I'll give you some tips. Sometimes you have inference questions, but that's mainly for the lectures again, so nothing to worry about. And most of the time you have detailed questions. Okay, so you have detailed questions. Now, these are the most complicated ones, and they are the most common ones. Now, these detailed questions ask you for specific details, right? So they could be like, what's the name of the professor that the student needs to go see? Or maybe, I don't know, what time should the student be in this class? So those details are the ones that they could ask you about. And honestly, this is the only type of question that I should be worried about, like the only one that you should try to have in your notes. What I'm trying to say is that whenever you have a question, so whenever you hear something like, whenever you hear a detail, something like 2 p.m. or 30 students, or Professor John. So try to take notes only on those details, okay? Don't worry about the other stuff. Just write down the details that you wouldn't normally remember, okay? So that's, I think those are the types, okay? These are more for the lectures, so we're not gonna talk a lot about them. And I'll give you some tips on these questions, okay? So is this okay now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, okay, so here are my tips. So the first one I'm gonna give you guys is always be logical. And this is not gonna be just for the like the listening, but in general for the whole test. Okay, sometimes, I don't know if you notice, but in the reading, even in the speaking, you need to try to reason your way out of things, especially if you don't know the answer. So these tips that I'm gonna give you are gonna be for when you don't know the answer, when you really don't know what the answer is, you miss that part, or maybe you are torn between two options and you wanna discard one. So these tips are like, generally they are true, but they don't always, I mean, they are not always the case. So it's just like what is most common to have. So the first one is for the main idea type of question. For the main idea type of question, the one that comes at the beginning, try to think of the campus work. Okay, think about what the campus worker is doing. So for example, can anyone please read the question here?
Why does the student go to see the professor?
Okay. And we have these options, right? To talk about her paper and farming practices, to see if she can study abroad, to discuss her research, okay, or to see if she can become a Spanish major. So we have those four options. What do you guys think? Is there any option that feels off, that maybe doesn't make too much sense?
I would do D because a professor doesn't have anything to do with like changing majors.
Perfect, that's correct. Any other one that you could cross out?
Oh, B too.
I suppose B, yeah.
Yes, you guys are totally right. So B and D are the ones that, I'm not saying that they're not the ones, but they are less likely to be the ones. So if you are taking your chances and you have to guess, then try to make it between A and C. Because yes, as you are saying, try to think of what the professor's job is. Or maybe if it's the librarian, it's probably gonna be related to a book or maybe a research or a computer that's not working. So try to think like that. Think of what the campus worker's role is and choose the one that makes sense. Well, if you don't know the answer, right? So if you don't know the answer, then it could be between A and C. So that's for the main idea type question. And honestly, in order to answer this one, which is 1 out of 5 already, you just need to listen to the first part. The first part of like the 31st seconds. And if you catch that, then you're okay with this question. And you already got one down. So this one's pretty easy, let's say. What else? Okay. So for the attitude types of questions. So, like, what is the attitude of the professor, or what attitude does the professor have towards the student's work? So here we have these options, right? What attitude does the professor have towards the student's work? So he's impressed by the novel's originality. He's concerned that students may find it difficult to read. He's bored by the descriptions of ordinary events, or he's eager to write a book about a less familiar subject. So what do you guys think? What do you think the tip here is? Anything that you could cross out?
I could begin with the option C.
Okay, and why?
I think it's unlikely that a professor was bored by reading or by listening to the descriptions of a novel.
Exactly. Yes, perfect. So he is bored. And also, they are kind of trying to show you the most, like the positive things, the positive bright side of college life and stuff. So most of the time, when you have these attitude questions, it tends to be something positive. So it's probably not going to be like he's bored or he's mad at the student or he's yelling or he's disappointed or he's not, I don't know, something that's not positive, right? So he could be impressed, yes. He could be concerned too. This is not so positive, but it's not bad, you know. It's not like, it doesn't make him look rude, because if he were like bored, that does make the professor look a little bit rude, right? And he's not supposed to be rude. And option D, I don't know, he's eager to write a book. Maybe not, right? He's not gonna write a book about a lesbian subject. That's not what you think when somebody's presenting you or handing out the assignment or whatever. So that will be the tip for the attitude questions. And in general, whenever you have options that seem or that make somebody feel or seem rude, those are usually not the ones. And another thing for the detailed questions, maybe, in general, you should be aware of the academic values. That's something that they try to emphasize, I think, with the questions. So for example, if you have these two questions, the professor will give the student an extension and the professor emphasizes that the student must hand in their paper on time. Which one do you think is more likely to be?
Option B.
Yes, perfect. Why? Because most of the time they are, even though they're supposed to be nice and helpful, they should also be fair with everyone. So giving extensions, giving extra credit, maybe favoring one student alone, that wouldn't be correct, right? It wouldn't be fair for everybody else. So B is more likely to be the one. Same thing here. So why won't the professor give the student recommendations? Maybe because she wants to be fair to other students, or maybe because she will help the student in a way that everyone can benefit from it. But I don't think it's because she doesn't want to help the student, right? She needs to be helpful. So probably A, probably B. So this is obviously in case you don't know the answer, right? Right now we haven't heard what the conversation was about, so we have no idea what the answer actually is, but we're just trying to see which ones would be more likely to be. So is this okay now? Any questions here? Okay, guys. So without further ado, I want to look at an example. Now, before we listen to our conversation and try to answer the questions, let's look at a transcript of another conversation. Okay, I want you to kind of be familiarized with the structure. So at the beginning, for example, this is between Amir and a librarian, okay? So Amir starts and says, hey, can you help me? So Amir is the student, right? He's asking for help. And the librarian asks, so what's the problem, right? So this is gonna be like the introduction. At the beginning of the conversation, first, say 30 seconds, that's where you are gonna know what the problem is. So what is the problem? And Amir explains, right? I gotta write an essay, but I can't find any suitable books in the engineering section on level 3. So that is the problem. The student can't find books for his essay. So as you can see, that's in the first part. And that's where the campus worker starts giving advice. So the campus worker starts giving some suggestions on what to do. So have you used the library search engine? So have you used the journal database? We can do library inductions a week on Wednesdays. I recommend you to go on one of them, right? So those are the suggestions. I recommend you do, maybe you can use this, maybe you can use this other thing. So basically the campus worker is giving the student the options, right? And those options are important to catch. So try to catch those suggestions. Okay, the first thing is use the search engine. Okay, you write down that. So second suggestion is journal database. Okay. Third one is the library induction tour. Then, I don't know, maybe you have some details here. For example, here, Amir says, or the librarian says, I don't know, where is it? Here, right? Maybe this. Meanwhile, you can go and talk to your subject librarian. The person for electric engineering is Mark Taylor. His office is on level 4. So these are the details, right? Level 4, Mark Taylor. I will write down those words, right? Maybe same thing here. Okay, Wednesdays. The library inductions are on Wednesdays. So those details are the ones that you should take notes on. Maybe the suggestions too. Maybe these other details, right? He probably on lunch. So you should come back at 2-ish. That's another detail. So those are the details that you should take into account in your notes. But in general, that's what you're expecting, a problem and suggestions. Okay. Any questions now? Okay. All right. So then let's practice. Let's do one. I'm sure you guys are gonna like these conversations. Maybe another thing I didn't say, you know what? Sometimes they start with a topic, right? They start talking about the problem, of course. But sometimes later in the conversation here, after they have solved the problem, they change the subject, okay? Maybe the librarian is like, oh, and another thing, Amir, I'm promoting this, I don't know, I'm promoting this book right now. I was wondering if you're interested in taking a look at it, maybe. And then they start talking about the author of the book, okay? So they completely change the subject. That could happen. I have seen a couple of those questions. So in case that happens, same thing, okay? You just need to try to look for the details. So they start talking about X book. The author is this X person. So that could happen, that may be the case, but it's still the same, all right? You just need to look for those details. So now let's practice with one of those. Let's take a look at conversation like that, where they change the subject. Okay, I think it was 6. All right. So I'm gonna play the conversation. Please grab a piece of paper and a pen to take notes. And we'll do.
Everything all right, Carla?
Yes, I just wanted to talk to you about the assignment that's due on Monday.
I can't give you an extension if that's what you want.
No, it's not that. I wanted to ask you about the word limit. At the moment, I'm way over it, but I found so many useful sources that I don't really want to cut anything out.
Well, it's meant as a guide rather than a hard and fast rule. It's not as if I'll stop marking as soon as I reach the word limit, but I don't really want you to go way over it either. 2,800 is the absolute maximum, I'd say.
Wow, that's still going to be hard.
Well, you can use this opportunity to try to make your writing more succinct. It's good exercise in writing technique. Think about which of the writer's points you really want to draw attention to and discard any information that isn't really relevant to your premise.
Okay, I'll try that.
Remember, you can always refer to 2 or more sources in the same paragraph, in the same sentence even.
What do you mean?
If one of your citations seems to complement what the other says, you can refer to them at the same time. You can do that when they contradict each other, too. It's a perfectly acceptable way of constructing a paragraph.
I get you. Well, I'd better go. I've got a lot to do before Monday.
Hang on, Carla. While you're here, I wanted to mention something to you.
What's that?
Have you heard about the Harvey Graduate Business Program?
No?
It's a special scheme funded by the Harvey Group, the financial place in town.
Yeah, I know it.
Well, they have a special program that they run especially for graduates. It's very exclusive. They only take on 3 people a year. Each of the major colleges in the state is invited to put forward a maximum of 5 students a year for consideration. And we only pick out the very best students, the ones with really high grades. I wondered if you'd be interested in trying out for it. After all, you've been doing well in all your modules.
Wow, it sounds like an honor to be considered. I guess all those late nights working on assignments were worth it. What does the program give you?
Well, you get work and training at the Harvard Group for a year, and then they will fund your master's course a year down the line. I'm right that you're interested in doing a master's course, aren't I?
Yes, I was considering doing something management-based.
Well, I think they discussed with you what master's course would be best for you and them, depending on the department you're working on. So you may be obliged to do the course they want you to do, but it's bound to be useful. Then they employ you for another year. And after that, you can choose to stay with the company or move on somewhere else.
Harvey's a prestigious company. I couldn't see myself moving on fast if I managed to get my foot in the door.
Indeed. Well, is it something that might appeal to you?
Maybe. I was hoping to go abroad for a while, though. What do I have to do to apply? Do I need a resume? I was working on mine just the other night.
Well, there's a rather lengthy application form to fill out, so I don't think a resume is needed. Then, if you get through the first stage, you'll have to do a presentation. If they like you, they'll invite you back for an interview. It's pretty tough, as you can imagine, but I wouldn't suggest it to you if I didn't think you could do it. I mean, you've done some great presentations in class, and you've had the experience of setting up your own business, too.
No. I haven't done that.
Haven't you? I thought you did something selling perfumes.
That's Miranda.
Oh, is it? Well, sorry about that. My mistake. But you've still had experience working in a business, haven't you?
Yeah, I've worked in my dad's office in the vacations.
Well, that's very valuable, and I'm sure you learned a lot from that. Well, if you're interested in the program, come to my office later on, and I'll give you the details. After 4 is best for me.
Thanks.
Everything all right, Carla?
Yes, I just want...
Okay. So how was it? What do you think of that conversation?
It was very understandable.
It was, right? Anything else? Anything that you find maybe difficult about the conversation?
The conversation has 2 topics as just you said.
Yeah, right. Sometimes it happens, but it's not that common. So right now, better be prepared. So better practice with something like that. But most of the time, it's not about 2 topics. But I'm glad you were able to identify that. Okay. But the vocabulary, I would say, it's quite understandable. So let's see what the questions are. Let's see how they look. So the first one here, maybe Luciana, can you please read the question?
Yes, of course. Carla wants to talk to the professor because... Do I read the options too?
No, I think it's okay.
Okay.
So this is the main idea, right? The problem. So what is the problem? Why does Carla go to talk to the professor?
She's worried that her assignment is too long.
Exactly. Yes, you guys agree? You agree? Jamil?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, perfect. So yes, it's about the word limit, right? At the beginning, she's like, I'm way over the word limit and I don't know what to do because I found good information. So that's the reason, the initial reason why she goes to see the professor. Now, careful this, I think the tricky part, the mistake that people make without question, sometimes they think like it's a summary question, but it's not, right? It's not like, what was the conversation about? So maybe in that case, you have an option that says it was about, or something like she or the professor wants to see if she's interested in this program. So even though they talk about that, and it could be one of the main ideas, that's not the reason why she wanted to talk to the professor, right? This is always going to be about the original reason why she went to see the professor. So careful with that. Okay. So now question 2. Can anyone please read it?
Read the 6 sentences below. Which two does the professor advise Carla to do?
Okay, perfect. So please read the sentences and let me know what option you would choose.
I would say 1 and 6.
Yeah,
Why?
me too. 1 and 6.
Okay, we're gonna see. Wait, it's not 1 and 6 actually. So about 1, I think you guys are right. Make your writing more concise because he says you should make it more succinct, right? It's a good opportunity to make it more succinct, which means to write the same thing but in fewer words. Now about 6, now think about this. If they were really like a reference to a source in every sentence, wouldn't that make their the essay even longer?
I got confused on that. Yeah, it is 1 and 3 actually.
Yes, you're right. So 3, they talk a lot about comparing and contrasting information and using the same source for like 2 or 1 paragraph, right? So that the opposite of 6. So instead of citing every single line, she's gonna use the same source to kind of use to cite 2 paragraphs that are comparing or contrasting each other. So that was the deal. Careful, 6 would actually make it longer than it is. So the next one here, it's a detailed question. So the Harvard Graduate Business Program provides young people with, take a look at the options.
I
The
think
last
that
one.
it's between the 3 and 4.
3 and 4. Okay. So Luciana says the last one. Let's see. Okay, you're totally right. A total of 2 years employment. Now this one is tricky because I think that it includes both, right? It is work in various departments, but more specifically, it's a total of 2 years. I don't know if it's various departments though. Maybe that's the thing. But yes, it's 2 years that you get a course within the 2 years. I think it's 1 year, the course, and then you get employed for another year. So a total of 2 years. Yeah. Now, this is like a function question. So it says, listen to Carla. Now, I'm going to be Carla for now. Carla says, Harvey is a prestigious company. I couldn't see myself moving on fast if I managed to get my foot in the door. So what does Carla mean by that? I couldn't see myself moving on fast if I managed to get my foot in the door. Let's see.
I would say number 3. Yeah.
3, okay. Samir, do you agree?
Yeah, I also believe that it's the third option.
Okay, well, that's perfect. So yes, it was like, it's a kind of paraphrasing it, right? Okay, sorry. So it's a conditional sentence for one. So it says, if I manage to get my foot in the door. And that's already telling us that we could discard A and D, right? Because it's not the same saying, if I manage to get my foot in the door, and after or once. Do you guys know what the difference is? Yeah, right. So when after and once, you're kind of sure, 100% sure that it's going to happen. But when you say if, you're open to the possibility. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. And then you just needed to kind of interpret this. It's not a literal expression. If I manage to get my foot, it's not like if I step in, it means if I get the job, if I get in, if you got to accept. Moving on fast, leaving the company for some time. Perfect. And finally, we got question 5, a detailed question. It says, which one of these does Carla not need to do? Is it sending a resume, complete an application form, give a presentation, or attend an interview?
Send a resume.
Yeah?
Yeah, the first sending a resume.
Okay, great. It is sending a resume, so she doesn't need to send in the resume. Did you guys have this in your notes? Do you remember?
Yes, I actually do. That's why I got it so quickly.
Okay, so you did remember it. Okay. Was there any question that you answered because of your notes?
That last one.
The last one, this one here. Okay. That was the only one?
Yeah, the rest it was memory.
Okay. What about you, Shamir?
No, I have no questions. All was clearly bad. I had a little trouble by listening to the audio.
Well, like connection trouble, you mean, or like with understanding?
Yeah, between the connection between the main ideas, and I had a little trouble uh, finding the connection between the first topic and then the second topic.
Okay, so yes, because they actually don't have any connection, right? They're totally two different things, but yes. But most of the questions were right, I think, 4 out of 5 actually. And as you can see, your notes only for the details, right? These details, for example, when you catch that part, I think that the student asks, right? The student asks, so where is it? What do I have to do to apply, right? And then the professor gives a list. So you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to submit this application or whatever. So I don't know if you noticed, but most of the time, and this is going to be the same for the lectures, by the way. So when a student or when the professor asks a question and you have a response, it's very likely that you will have something in your questions related to that. Even the same question in the lectures, it happens a lot. So the professor asks a question to the students, and when the students answer, or maybe the professor himself answers the question, and you have the same question in your questions. So listen to whenever you have like a question, listen to the response. So yeah, that's really interesting, I think. Same thing here, right? What does the program give you? So what does the program give you? You have a response there. You know, these like, and there are some things that don't matter that much, right? Like for example, this question here, have you heard about this program? And Carla says no, so that's not important. You're not gonna have a question that's like, has Carla heard of the program before? No, you're not gonna have that question, but you could have those detailed questions, right? Same thing here. So you know the financial place in town, that's not an important question, so you don't have to try to take notes on that part. So yes, just try to catch those details, and the rest is just memory, I think, for the conversations. So I don't know if you guys have any questions now.
Like like the reading, if we commit a mistake, our right answers work the same, I suppose.
I'm sorry. So if you make a mistake,
No, if while if I commit a mistake while giving my TOEFL, if I if there are there less points if in my correct answers if I have a mistake in this section.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Can you try and explain again?
For example, if I commit a mistake or if I have a bad answer in the listening section, and
Okay.
and this answer can discount the points I gain in the same section in the listening.
I mean, yes, so for like for every, it's not that you don't have, like, they take points out, but they don't give you the points that you would have to have for that question, right? So if let's say that this question is worth 2 raw points. So if you get it wrong, you don't get the 2 raw points. And that's gonna affect definitely your score of the listening, right? The whole thing. So I don't know if that's what you were asking.
No, but yeah, it was too near, but okay, if I made a mistake in my TOEFL and I answer badly a question, what if I I get, I don't know, 15 right answers, and I got another two wrong answers. These
Yeah.
2 wrong answers can discount the or can discount the total score I could get in the TOEFL, or
Yes.
they could, I don't know what's the word,
I mean, everything that you get
restar
wrong,
puntos.
like 10 points off, you mean? Like,
Sí.
I don't know what you mean, honestly.
Yes, I couldn't find the word, the phrase.
So you mean like if I got 15 right and 2 wrong, will it affect my score? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Well, yes, it's gonna affect your score. In order to have a perfect score, you should have, I mean, you should have answered all the questions correctly. I think that you're allowed to make maybe 1 mistake in the listening. So you can maybe have 1, it's not gonna affect it. Maybe 1 mistake or 2 in the reading. But in general, if you have more than that, then yes, you cannot have a perfect score, like 120 in the test, if you have like more than 2 or 3 questions wrong, right? So yes. Did I answer your question?
Sí, pero no me estoy confundiendo, es que no podría
Sorry.
encontrar la frase correcta, pero
Okay.
digamos que, bueno, si las respuestas incorrectas o sea, se descuentan a las respuestas correctas en el TOEFL,
Ah,
sí, no
no.
podría encontrar la frase.
No. That doesn't happen. No. You're no, not at all. So you get 15 right, you just get 15 right. There, even no matter how many you get wrong, if you got your 15 right, then that's gonna be correct, and you're gonna have the score corresponding to those 15 right. They're not gonna take any points off from that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I think it was my problem too. I wasn't sure what you meant. Maybe it's because I have never like been asked that question before, but it's actually a good question, because I think that in some tests, like maybe not in like these standardized tests, but yeah, in some cases they do that with some other types of tests. So yeah. Okay. All right, guys.
I think
Any
the
other?
SAT does that. I don't remember.
I'm sorry, Luciana?
I think the SAT did that.
The SAT, yeah. I think the SAT does that, yes. I'm not sure. the SAT is completely different. The way that they score it is different, totally
Yes.
different. Than the TOEFL is a lot simpler than the SAT. Yeah. Okay. Any other question?
I'm fine.
Okay. Okay, guys, so then that'll be it. I'm sending you the daily survey. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you next class.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.